What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by the Real Estate Cheat Code. I have Tom Conley with me, which I'm super excited because Tom had a big impact on my real estate career. But Tom's with the Columbus House Connection at e-merge real estate. And Tom, thanks so much for jumping on with me. And obviously, I know a little bit of your story. I don't know all of the story, but I'm super excited because you were one of the first people, on our team that really helped me learn real estate back in the day, and with your wisdom and experience, right? Because as a new agent, I didn't have a clue, and it was you and Ryan that I was able to lean on and ask questions and bounce things off of. And so, Tom, thanks so much for jumping on here and talking with us today.
Well, I appreciate you having me on here, John. So yeah, I've watched a
Who-
couple of your other podcasts and interesting people. I mean, there's some I do know and didn't know their full stories as well. But yeah, it's really neat to get the background on some people.
Who would have thought, 12 years later that, I'd be hosting a podcast and having you
Right.
on with me.
Whoever even thought there would be even a thing called podcast, right? At my age.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, Tom, on the Tell Me More podcast, the whole thing about this is helping people understand that there's not one way to get into this business, and there's not one way to have success in this business.
Hmm.
And I love just having agents on here and just sharing their journey and sharing how they focused about building their business and all of those things. But we always start about the podcast and the journey from the very, very, very beginning, and that's growing up. What was life like for you as a child? Where are you from? What were some of your hobbies and interests and things that that you did as a child?
Right. Um, so as a child, I grew up on the west side of Columbus, um, southwest side, and grew up in a middle class family. So nothing huge or exciting. My family struggled just a little bit here and there, just like any other family would. My father and mother have already passed away, but my father retired from Xerox Corporation, and he did, I think, 31 years there as Xerox.
Wow.
He came right out of the Air Force and went to work at Xerox. So I went back on some of his stuff, and he used to work on the B-1 bomber in the radio room and things of that stuff. So that was kind of interesting of how he brought us up, and he did a really well job. I mean, he worked very hard at his job. He's very tired sometimes when he came home, and I've seen that impact of what hard work can really get you and what it can provide for you. And one of the things he did tell me when I was a young kid growing up, when I was growing up and going to school and got my first job at an IGA um, grocery store, and he said, it doesn't matter how much money you make, but it matters what you do with it. So that was an impact that I had, and I have a lot of other sayings that he said that really affected my life today. And one of the things I even have on my computer here, one of his saying was, "Someday starts today." You don't,
Mm,
when people say, "Well, one of these days," or "Someday I'm going to do this," or he said it starts today. Today's the day that you start that. So
mm.
one of the things that, just growing up on the west side of Columbus, I started off going to a Catholic school, and then I ended up going to a public school, which gave me a lot of diversity into people. But I also let the kids know that when I was in the inner city, how crazy I was, because the elementary school that I was in, which was downtown, I got bused down there, and they got like 5 or 6 brand new of those kickballs. The ones that when you hit them, they go bow.
Yeah. Yeah.
They echo. Well, I kicked all 6 over the fence onto the freeway, and all the kids knew, man, that kid is crazy. Don't mess with him. So that was kind of hilarious at the time, but I did get in trouble for it. So uh, the other thing that when I was growing up, is I found a love for music, and I would kind of escape into my room to get away from things or whatever. Some people read books or anything like that. So I was kind of a self-taught DJ. Had turntables in my room with mix records, and we would make mixtapes. My first kind of gig was a friend of mine, and we actually DJ'd a Catholic high school dance, and it was like old time speakers and stuff. And I got to be honest, man, we like killed it. Like we killed it. But I don't think the nuns and the teachers really like some of the choice records that we used. So we were never asked back. So,
It's funny. It's funny because you mentioned and I actually, when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I know Tom does that, but I had forgot about it. Recently that that was one of the things that you enjoy doing.
yeah. And you know what? I still do it to this day. I actually have a Christmas party that I need to do this weekend, but I probably do about 4 or 5 weddings a year, still to this day. Friends and
Nice.
family will reach out to me, and I give them, a pretty good deal. And we got pretty good equipment now that you have a real estate career. You can actually afford the better equipment, So we do actually have laser lights now, and we had a smoke
Yeah.
machine, but we quit using it because I set off the alarms at a wedding one time. So we ditched the smoke machine. So yeah, that's crazy. But yeah,
That's
to
fun.
this day, and I ended up taking radio and broadcasting when I was in high school. I did a 2-year vocational school for radio and broadcasting, and then I was going to pursue my career into the Air Force. But when I went to the Air Force to talk about radio and broadcasting, they started talking about being a cook and doing these other odd jobs. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the radio and broadcasting career move. And once they started talking differently, I was like, nah, I don't think I want to pursue that. So
Yeah.
I kind of ditched that. Then moving on, I went to kind of skipping a lot of maybe my childhood, but I mean, went to a community college here in Columbus, and went there for law enforcement. I was going to try to become a police officer and take the civil service test. And then while I was working, ended up buying my first house off of a real estate agent that is a friend of mine's mother and father. They were a team, a husband and wife team. And to this day, that friend is actually the godfather of my daughter.
Mm.
So I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot of what they were doing because they were Mike and Darlene George. And Mike taught me a lot about foreclosures. They taught me about evictions and how to unfortunately remove people or try to keep people into their homes and things. And that touched a kind of a pinpoint with me because I got to see the first forefront of he was a Columbus cop and detective, and I got to see him actually go up to a house gunpoint where people just would not move, and we had people move into a home. I think they were doing drug activity or something like that. But forefront walking up on the porch with a gun, I was like, wow, this is for real. This is, So it's either
Yeah.
one, I wanted to become a police officer because the day would be different every day, and then the second would, when I got into real estate, was Darlene. Back to the original story, Darlene and Mike sold me in their first house, and we bought it off MI Homes, and when they bought it, or actually I bought it, they received a bonus. And I got to see, back then it was called the HUD-1 settlement statement versus
Yeah.
the Alta, and I was like, whoa, you made how much doing this? And that was the changing point of my life. I was like, how do I do this? What do I get into? And Mike took me straight up under his wings as my mentor for almost 2 years to learn the foreclosure market and other real estate and residential real estate.
Yeah.
So
So it was just that. It was the experience of you buying the house, and it was the Wolf of Wall Street moment when he's like, "Show me the check and I quit today." It
that's
was that for
right.
you.
It wasn't that quick. I actually, like most agents, I didn't have the money. True story. I ended up going with HER. That's where Mike was at. So I joined HER, and they said, you know what, Tom, you're going to start training in 2 weeks. So this is true story. I can't even make this up. So I go to training, and I kid you not, John, there's a squad at the building for the lady who's our trainer, and unfortunately, she passed away.
Oh
Like
my
she
gosh.
passed away that day. So no, we didn't know what to do. There was probably 6, 7 students, and they were like, "Hey, no class today," and we knew that for the
Right.
severity of what just happened. So I go back to the office, and I told my manager at the time. I said, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. The trainer had suffered, I don't know if a heart attack or what. I still don't really know to this day, but It was still a sad situation. Um, but they said they don't have any trainers. There was no backup plan. And John,
Wow.
I was at the time, I was preparing my career, so I was actually throwing boxes at FedEx because I was gearing up. I wanted that time frame where I could still work, make some money, but still go into real estate full time. So at that time, I started going door to door. I started going door to door and looking at for sale by owners, and I would knock on their door and ask them for their listing and things like that. And I think the first 2 months I've got like 5 for sale by owners at the time. And I come
Yeah.
back, my manager goes, I don't know how you did this. How do you do this? You know what I told him, John? Broke. I'm broke. I got to do something. When your back's up against the wall, you just, and that has instilled me into this day that I know it sounds weird. I don't know how other people do it, but I really truly, I work like I'm broke.
Yeah.
I work
Well,
I work like I'm broke. Like that's what keeps me going because I'm not going to stop,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where I tell people getting into the business all the time, if you believe in your work ethic and you are true and honest about that conversation or that piece of you, if you have the work ethic, you'll be fine. If you
Sure.
are if you are naturally lazy or complacent or those things, not that you can't be successful, but success might be more inconsistent, right? Because that's just who you are. And, neither one is right and neither one is wrong. But in
Mhm.
this business, you have to have some of that drive, some of that motivation, or create some of that pain to
Mhm.
keep you going when you don't want to go or when the negative stuff happens, and all of those things. I think that's where a lot of agents get caught, because I think as humans in general, if we have the choice of working versus relaxing, the majority of us are going to take relaxing, right? And I think that's just part of human nature. But Tom, when did you get licensed?
Man, you got a great question. So this this year, I just hit my 25th year at the CVR.
Nice.
So 25 years. So since 1998, I always thought it was 1996 because it seems like I was in here longer. But 1998, yeah, I just hit my 25th year this year, and I'm just looking back of all the successes, and there has been failures, but the failures have become successes. There's things I've learned from you, John. I and everybody watching here. Something I've really, really learned from you was to how to, you know, the way I was growing up, there wasn't too much internet going on. It slowly evolved and it evolved quickly, and you had to adjust, and you had to learn, and if not, you're going to get set by the wayside. But one of the biggest things I learned from you is how to use a Google Calendar. The
Yeah.
Google Calendar is your friend. It keeps you on track. I watched you diligently stick by that calendar from where you would be making calls, then you would go into your lunch, and I maybe come in and bombard you at your office, and not only would you be eating lunch, you would still be watching some type of like real estate um, YouTube video or some type of a podcast or something, and I'd watch you go by that calendar. And that's what brought me to my Google Calendar to say, look, I've got to implicate the tools and the systems that not only you, but Ryan has instilled in me. So there was things I learned too. You guys might have never seen me pick up on things, but I took a lot of things that you guys were doing and I was watching. And that's what things do, or people do as mentors or mentees, is they're going to watch from their trainer, and they're going to watch from who's kind of leading the show of what they're doing and how they're successful. And all you got to do is copy it and do the best you can. You don't have to copy every part of social media or Instagram, TikTok, all these different things that are going on, but you implicate some. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things where I still use it to this day. I consider it a system of my business, and really, it's a
yeah,
system of my life. But it creates a roadmap for me, and I try to tell agents all the time, like, what are the things that you do every single day? Like, just set the same time right? And in the same day, like prospecting for me is at 9 and again at 11. Like that's Monday through Thursday for me personally right now. And you don't have to think about it, right? Like just set it in there. That's when you show up for those activities. And when you're done with those activities, you don't have to worry about it,
Yeah.
and it's just a tool. It's a system of my business. It's a system of my life to where, now Anna, my wife, she knows anything that we're doing, as far as whether it's going to dinner or hanging out with a friend or going to see family. She better be sending me a calendar invite, because if it's not in there, that means if I don't have anything, it's free, right? Like I can
Right.
fill it with appointments or whatever. So Tom, you got in 98, 25 years into the business, really, hit the ground hustling because, you had no other choice. You had to figure it out.
Oh yeah.
Had a mentor, had mentors that, helped you along the way. And that's a common theme, right? So, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have anyone, go find someone, whether it's at your office, whether it's in your city, there's agents at different brokerages that will, teach you and mentor you, because everyone that's come on here said I had someone, or I've had multiple people. But
Right.
Tom, for you, like, how did you, take me down your real estate journey, of, how did you think about building your business? Did you have success? Did you have, failures? Did you have doubters when you said I'm going to become a real estate agent? Like, just kind of take me on that path.
Oh yeah, yeah. That truly, you do have your supporters, and you, unfortunately, in the beginning, it seems like you got more doubters than you have supporters at the time. Your family starts worrying, oh my gosh, you're going to enter into the world of being self-employed and being a 1099, person. Um, and you really got to control the situation. You've got to put money back for taxes, that some people don't. They get caught up in that realm. But um, just getting into the real estate career, I worked for a new build company, and I held all their open houses at the time, as I still held my license. And then I jumped over with Mike and them. But then he took me to the foreclosure market, let me learn about short sales, how to do BPOs, the broker opinion letters for banks. And I ended up leaving HER after about a couple years, I think it was, and went to Remax just because the commission plan was just astronomical. So second year into the business, first year into the business, I think I made around $50,000 my first year in the business. And then second year went into Remax and basically gave me a $50,000 raise. So I started making $100,000 a year from Remax, and then never looked back since. With that being said, though, I learned the pitfalls. I owned a brokerage for a while. That kind of had some pitfalls in it, but learned from that. Back in, I think it was '06, John, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is when we had the kind of the economic breakdown of real estate.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know. I was in a room full of my peers, and I said, they were talking about foreclosures. They were big at the time: foreclosures, short sales, people losing their homes. Well, I walk in with a suit on. Obviously, didn't dress up for a suit for you today, but dressed up as a suit. I had a suit on, and I said, "Hey, I stood up in front of, I think, 30 of my peers at a real estate breakfast, type thing." And I said, "What does somebody look like that's going through foreclosure?" And they all stopped for a minute, and they looked around. They're like, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" I said, "You're looking at one." I was facing two counts of foreclosure, one on my personal home and one on a rental property. And I ended up learning. I took a class at the time. It's called FIS, which was a foreclosure interpretation specialist. And I took my own class, not to help other people, but to short sell my own house.
Mm.
I was facing foreclosure on one of our largest assets, um, and it happened. It just happened.
Yeah.
And by learning of my personal problems that I went through of facing foreclosure, because the market just crashed. It just fell from the bottom. There was just nobody was buying, no one was selling. That was my main source of income at the time. So I taught myself how to do foreclosures and did interpretation, trying to help people keep their house.
Mm-hmm.
either whether doing a loan modification is what we try to do first, and then obviously you could do a deed in lieu with the bank. But the main thing was trying to help the people keep their house by doing a loan modification. So I go in as a counselor, more or less, and that's how I get paid. The money would go towards the broker, obviously, because of state law requirements, and then I would get paid as counsel. Um, so with that being said, a lot of those people, unfortunately, when they were going to do loan mods, ended up going back into the same rut of couldn't make the payments. So I'd end up short selling their home, which was better because they could still get an FHA loan probably 2 or 3 years later,
Yeah.
without getting foreclosed on, which was worse. So I turned my entire business around of doing short sales, and with doing short sales, it went way beyond that we could thought it would ever imagine. I mean, I think at one time we had 10 listings, and they were just all short sales, and we were
Yeah.
working with the banks. I had all the banks' information. I mean, I'm talking hundreds of banks, phone numbers, emails, and we were getting to their loss mitigation department. And I would tell you, some of these banks didn't even have loss mitigation departments. They were like, "What's loss mitigation?" I'm like, "We have a house that's..." Yeah. So some of the people actually got to live in their house for almost a year, or more, without even making a house payment. And I just kept trying to sell their home and work with the banks. And so that was a stepping stone of learning what Mike went through in the foreclosure market. It was weird how it all kind of sidestepped and kind of moved in my direction. But it did make me value money more,
Yeah.
and what to do, and not what to do. But sometimes things are just out of your control, when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I think that's where the conversation with real estate agents is you are a true advisor, right? Like and we're not just opening doors, we're not just putting people in homes, and I think me being when I got in so young, I saw the foreclosure stuff, I saw the short sale stuff, I saw all of the bankruptcy stuff, but also I was so young that I didn't understand the impact that owning a home could really do for someone's family or for someone's life, right? Like
Right.
I was ignorant to that part of it. Now, obviously, being older and wiser and seeing even some of my first time home buyers that I helped in 2012, be able to then sell that home at that time, walk away with a big chunk of equity now and roll that into something else, or roll that into a house and then an investment property. Um, and I think, that's the conversation, right, that we need to be having even today in this market, right, with high interest rates and, people waiting for the market to come down and values to come down. And it's like, we need to advise us, hey, why is now still a good time to do something? But let's be smart about it. Let's not be emotional about the process right now. Let's be
Right.
smart about the process and really figure out what your plan is and what's your goals, and, map out what the future could look like. Is this a 2-year plan, or is this a 5-year plan, or is this a 15-year plan? Because that will change how we advise and how we go about
Right.
this.
Right.
Because I don't care what rates are, the best time to buy a house is today. Like, it's like, it's,
Yep.
there's things that we can do to help you and educate you and, put you in a better position if rates do come down,
Right.
or, hey, if prices do come down, right? Like, so you go through that, obviously coming out on the other side of it, you're working the short sales, working the asset managers, the BPOs, all of those things. Was that kind of just your bread and butter then for a long time?
I would say for probably a couple years while we went through that, and then I actually ended up taking the course, with a friend of mine, Derek, who actually wrote the course. We actually wrote an ebook, that went out to real estate agents. They could purchase the book, very inexpensive, because I told him, if we do this, I want to help real estate agents, one, make money, but two, they shouldn't have to pay for an ebook that is going to help people in the long run. So I ended up doing a couple courses for the high division of real estate, where we actually taught agents how to do short sales. The first class, I think we had 30 people. Second class was probably 120 people. And we were teaching agents, real estate agents, how to conduct a short sale. How do they work with a bank? With that course, I would provide them hundreds contacts with banks, how to get a hold of the bank. If they had a first loan or a lien, first mortgage or a second mortgage, because obviously the second lien holder holds the trump cards over the first mortgage. So we would work through all that and teach them things. So I was passing that down to several, I'd say a couple hundred agents in the Columbus market to help. And I wanted to make an impact because I knew how that affected me and my
Mm-hmm.
family. And I know how people went through, because going through that is in any real estate transaction, but that one's, obviously the worst of the worst. But you're really, I think at the end of the day, we're problem solvers of real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to solve a void or not really a problem, but something that's, someone just had kids and they want a bigger house, or unfortunately, some people have deaths. I do a lot of estate sales too, that people that pass away, they look to me to do estate sales, and I work with the family, and it's a lot of counseling. It's a lot of, like you said, advice and being an expert advisor of these people and giving them the right path to walk down, but being compassionate, being honest, is what they deserve. All buyers and sellers deserve honesty. It doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, or the ugly, and I know you, John, we shoot it straight.
Yeah.
We're going to tell you exactly what the situation is. It may be something you don't want to hear, but at the end of the day, you can look back and say, wow, that Jon Harp, he didn't lie to us. I mean, he told us straight up what it was going to take and what it's going to, what we need to do to accomplish their goal. And that's what people deserve.
Yeah.
At the end
Well,
of the day.
I think too, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're also running a business, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to determine like who can I truly help and who can I not.
That's true.
And one of the things, obviously, from the NAEA that has always stuck with me is you have to think of yourself like a doctor, like an attorney, and sometimes the doctor has to deliver the news that maybe, hey, you have this diagnosis or your life expectancy is X, and no one wants to do that. But like you said, the other person appreciates the reality of the truth. And I see it all the time. Like, agents sometimes spend too much time with people that they can't really help. And it's because they're afraid to have the conversations and ask the hard questions. So if that's you listening right now or watching this, one of the easy ways to get around that or to make that a little bit more comfortable is just saying, hey, Tom, is it okay with you if I tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear? And most people are going to say yes. Like, I want the reality of everything, right? So if you're struggling with having some of those hard conversations, ask for permission first to have the hard conversations. Now, if they say no, right, well, maybe it's like, maybe they're not in the right mind space, or maybe they're just not realistic of what's going on in the real estate market. And those are two different things. And then you got to navigate those waters differently. But that honestly, like me getting in at that time in 2011 and 2012, obviously people were losing homes and going through that. But I always say, like, I'm so appreciative that I got in at that time, because it made me have those hard conversations. And as well as someone that did lose their home to short sale or foreclosure, or because of a bankruptcy, because they lost a job and all of those things, really having conversations as to, hey, I know you just had this experience that was not the best in the world, but home ownership is really still important, right? And again,
100, yeah.
hey, let's do this the right way. We're not going to be emotional. We're not going to overspend. Let's do this the right way, the smart way. And if we do that, I promise you, everything will take care of itself with time, right? And yeah, so those hard conversations back then have really helped me today.
And back to that story, when I was in that meeting, and true story, when I left there and I came clean, I figured it's kind of like being a rapper, right? When the rapper Eminem, himself, who in that room can really talk about you if you just told all your business, kind of like I just did now. And actually, when I left there, I had 4 real estate agents out of that meeting contacting me that were facing pre-foreclosure. And I worked with them pro bono and walked them through the entire processes of trying to help them keep their house. And I think one or two maybe sold, and two actually kept their home through loan mods and stuff. So it just that talk, you just never know when you're sitting in the room what people are going through, what their heartaches are, what they're going through, right? So I had, and it was, I told them, when they reached out to me, basically, we keep everything anonymous, and they didn't even know there was four in that room until
Yeah.
just now. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just in real estate, it's just a lot of experiences. That's what you get out of being a real estate agent, is just experience, and all the experiences are different, right? So I was thinking about
Yep.
becoming a police officer. The next best thing was becoming a real estate agent. I mean, every day is different. It's never the same. I never had the same deal. I never had the same ups and downs of a deal.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. I think the part that I love is negotiating back and forth, and fitting the pieces to the puzzle that it's benefit not only for who you're working with, but also the other party and the other real estate agent. Let's trying to work all together of putting this puzzle together. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tom, lead me up to like current day of, your business, how you grew it. Kind of lead me up to the path from like 2000 and, 10 to current day.
Yeah. So one of the things I really messed up on day one, was I had, at the time I did purchase it. I think I had Top Producer, which was a CRM. And then when I think I really got where I was with Remax, and then I kind of shipped over, and I think, we joined teams together with you and Ryan, was the very, very, very importance of a CRM, and how a CRM can actually create more business down the downline, right? Your funnel that you're trying to fill, and keep reaching out to those past clients, your sphere of influence, but building that CRM. When actually, I think it was Darlene got out of the business. I think I offered her at the time. I think I offered her $3,000 or $4,000 for her database, and she
Yeah.
sold it for much higher than that. I think she sold it for much higher than that, or she actually gave it to one of her good friends. But you can,
Yeah.
and John, I mean, these CRMs and your database is worth thousands of dollars. If you can keep that database up, you could actually sell it when you want to get out of the business, or if you don't have a child or somebody you want to pass it down to, or somebody that's very close to you. That's another source of income that you can make, is selling that downline of, or getting referrals, from that.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing too. A good takeaway that I got from you and Ryan, and from NAEA, is building that CRM and creating that database that is going to be so important to you down the road. And that's where really today is where our business comes from. Is probably 90% of our business is past clients and referral based. Now, that's great, but I think during like COVID, it was weird. Like, I don't know if you were busy during COVID, but we went like gangbusters. That COVID,
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe, by being told stay in your home, but the real estate industry drove this country. I mean, it really kept everything moving. We sold more houses during COVID than
Yeah.
anything. So then it was kind of weird, because I was like, oh my gosh, I just sold like everybody of my friends, my family houses. And I'm like, what am I going to do next year? I sold everybody houses. They're not going to move. So, then getting back to lead gen, which I know you guys do a lot of lead gen and stuff, and that's very important. I still struggle with lead gen. I don't know what it is. I've tried like 4 or 5 different companies, and it's just like, this can't be the way it is. It's just, it's like, I don't know. I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
Getting the good leads or bad leads, and then I'm still out there fishing too, trying to get my own leads. But you could probably comment on that. I mean, you guys deal with that every day.
Well, it's one of the things I talk a lot of, to agents about. It's probably not in alignment to your personality and how you want to build your business. And you're fighting a current that you think you need to fight, but it's really probably not one that you should be in, and it's like the same thing with like me. I was just talking to one of our agents today, like open houses. And I say this all the time. Like, I don't focus on open houses because I hate them. I don't like them. I know they work, right? But it's
Right.
not. for me. It's for someone else, and if you want to build your business through your SOI, like that's for some people, and for other people, it's not for them. And same thing with like listings, like like I started the first 3 years of my business, I only did buy side deals. I did not touch a listing, and
Yeah.
and buyers are more in alignment with who I am and my personality than a seller. Tom, you're better with probably sellers, right? Because of your
Right.
personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, let's get in, let's get out, let's get this done and over with. Let's take the next step, right? And
Right.
there's and that's the cool thing about these conversations. It all works, and there's nothing wrong with you saying, "Hey, I only want to work with buyers. I
Right.
don't like sellers." There's nothing wrong with
Right.
that, but so many people think they have to do everything, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they
That's
have to buy everything, and it's like, nah, just lean into what you're good at.
yeah. Yeah, you'll find your niche. I mean, that's what it is. You're finding your niche of what you want to do in real estate and stick with that niche. And sometimes your niches come in times like
Yeah,
like the foreclosure thing, right? So your niche will change. Your niche will change, and that's okay as long as you're putting food on the table and paying your bills and things. And that, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And you're still enjoying this industry. I mean, there's some days I got to be honest, and thank God that you have reminders, John, to send out quite a bit, by the way. But I was like, because you sometimes I don't know if you ever done this. Have you ever forgot, like, wake up and think it's like Wednesday when it's really a Tuesday, and you're like, my God,
yeah.
that's when you love what you do, when you forget what day it is. I mean, it's just crazy. My daughter's caught me on that too. She's like, Dad, it's Friday, it's not Thursday. Like, so it is kind of weird how the industry can that you love can you love it so much that you forget what day or time you're on. So
Well,
yeah.
you brought up, my reminders and things like that, but that's, when you think about building your real estate business, right, it's system dependent. And the
Yeah.
reality is, I have a virtual assistant, Elanus, who helps me out with all of that back end stuff.
Right.
Because if it was me, then I would forget, right? So like I have a process, a standard operating procedure for when we book a guest onto the podcast. Here's when we're going to be doing the follow-ups,
Hmm.
and when we're sending the questions and all of those things, because it's system dependent, right? And that's
Yeah.
where you need to get with your business. And you mentioned a CRM, right? Like use the drip campaigns, use the home search setup, IDX feeds, like use those things, because those are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so
But it
Tom, I
makes
want to
sense.
go
It
ahead.
makes sense. Even on my side, I greatly appreciated that. You know what I'm saying? It is reminders for me too. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with your next.
I was just going to say, I want to switch gears a little bit,
Mhm.
and I want to focus on like future goals and business and just thought process. And what's a 12-month, and I know you got some projects and things going on, but what's a 12-month goal for you within your business?
Um, I think I really want to grow with some new people. I think I want to grow my CRM a little bit more. I think I would really want to still try my hand at some lead gen coming in. I do create my own lead gen through Facebook and probably my age group. They're a lot on Facebook, so I do some private messaging and things of that nature. But I think I want some new people. Now I do. I don't know if you know this or not, but I do mentor agents in our company, and I do coach quite a few agents, and I walk them through all their transactions and stuff, make sure they're doing things correctly and things, which is great. Because what we're trying to do as coaches and mentors is really take that learning curve away from everybody, right? We want them to start making money as quickly as possible and not go through the pitfalls that you and I went through. But I think more lead gen. I think more people that I want to work with. There's just so many things I think I want to do. I just want to grow and make. I do want to make just honestly just as much money as I possibly can and bank it. I mean, I
Yeah,
really do. We're in a process, and thank God I have a wonderful wife, and who's also a real estate agent. So she does work with a lot of the buyers versus me working with sellers, but it works hand in hand.
yeah,
And then we trade off. We'll trade off if I need to go show some homes or anything. And I still do open houses quite a bit because I told you I still want some new people to come through
yeah,
the door. And
yeah,
that's a great source of income is doing an open house. I mean, you get to meet quite a few people Some may be working with agents, some may not be working with agents, but it's a good source of income and meeting new people. There's so many things we got going on. I got a tiny home that's being built, or actually it's already been built. We got it delivered, got it set up on blocks and things of that nature. So we have a beautiful tiny home that sits in the hills, close to Hocking Hills in the Benton County area, on 18 acres. So I think we may rent that out to friends and family. I don't know if I'm going to do the whole Airbnb yet, because when you walk in this tiny home, it's so beautiful, and I'm like, I don't know how people are going to treat this thing.
Yeah.
Is this going to be a frat house over the weekend? So
Yeah.
there's different things. It's weird how as you grow, what your whys are, right? My why has always been my family and my kids. That'll never change until I'm done with this career, I guess, and I don't know how long it'll take me. I still want to be in it some way, shape, or form. No, how would I get? I still want to be in that
Yeah.
shape or form of that. But and your whys just change and your goals change. That's why you never burn bridges. You never burn bridges with the people you worked with, your last broker you were with. I mean, you never know when you may go back and try something else, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I think that's one thing that I would love to see change within our industry is and I've gotten better with it over the years, and all of those things, but I think it's hard from a leadership standpoint sometimes too. But I was at a mastermind about, I think, 2 years at this point, 2 years ago at this point, and he said, as a leader, you have to look at those things as graduations and not divorces, right?
yeah,
It's you help them get to that next step, and now they're graduating,
right.
from your team or your brokerage or whatever. And that has helped me as a leader, and honestly, it freed up the conversation to where I never want any of my agents to leave in the middle of the night. Like, I want to
Right.
know ahead of time, and I want them to feel comfortable enough that they can come to me and say, "Hey, John, I'm thinking about this, not ready to pull the trigger next week, but it might be something that's 6 months down the road, 8 months down the road, 12 months down the road, and this is what I want to do." And for me as the leader, it's how do I create that transition period for them, right? How do I help them get things set up to where there's no step back, right? They're just continuing on doing what they're doing already. So, no, that's a great point, because you never know what's going to happen 5 years from now, which leads me to my next question for you is, what's a 5-year goal for you?
I'm not going to get out of the business in 5 years. That's for sure. I'm not. I had a couple friends. I do a lot of things. You gotta act an adventure in your life too. So I have a side by side, a couple things. We ride in the woods and things. That's my kind of getaway type thing. But I've had a couple friends saying, when are you going to retire? I don't know. I don't think I will. I feel like I'm partially retired right now, right? I mean, I dictate what I want to do. I dictate who I want to work with. I dictate how much money I want to make. And that's the true thing about being a real estate agent is you can work as hard as you ever want to work. And I think you should. When you first get in this business, I think you should be trying to hold every open house open as you possibly can. I think you should, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think you should take every listing that you possibly can right in the beginning. And then you
Hmm.
can start saying, well, I don't want that property, or this property doesn't fit my mold, or things. And sometimes doing a takeaway move, when you get to an agent that's been in the business long enough, they can dictate what they want to do. And I tell people when I go to a listing appointment, you we may list your home, we may not. It is. It's a case by case issue. But being new in the business, I think you should really do everything you can and really work hard. I think John, you still work hard. I still work hard. Ryan,
Yeah.
works hard. It's just instilling us. There's some like-minded people out here that we all. It's real weird. Like we're all on the same page, and then unfortunately, there's some that are not on the same page.
Yep.
Um, just like you, I'm sure you're probably reading a book right now. Probably reading something, or you're doing something. Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like the book I have, and I might even pick this up from you. Um, Actually, I got it sitting right here. Uh, it's called Exactly What to Say. It's for real estate agents. Have you seen that one?
No, but I think you've told me about it.
Yeah, yeah. So I've had this, and I've already read quite a bit, but I've gone through it. There it is. I've gone through
Yeah.
it, and then I keep going back because some of the things in here. I think we talked about this before. I don't know why I carry this thing so much as I do, but um, it's really got some good keepers in there. So it's when you ask a question, it's asking the right question to get the right answer, right? You want the
Yeah.
right answer coming back. So it's a great book, great read. Carried around quite a bit, but it's just you're constantly growing, right? And then there's sometimes I do listen to music in my vehicle, but there's sometimes, man, I'm like, wow, I love to listen to Tony Robbins, or I like to listen to up and coming mentors or mentees, or anything that you can grasp to get that little sense of something that may change your mind thought for that day, right? It's just a moment in time. If you're having a bad day, and I try to teach my kids this, if you're having a bad day or something's not working right, you're going through a moment in time. You can change your mind pattern or your thought just in a couple moments. You just, take a deep breath and get through some things. But, not every day is a great day for Tom Conley either. You try to do the best you can at the time you can. And what it is hanging out with, the Jon Harps, the people that lift you up, not the people that are just kind of
Yeah.
down. You need to be around like-minded people that are just great people and that are up. I mean, we have a great broker too. I know Rick. I mean, that guy.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know what he takes in the morning, but man, that guy, you get a dose of him every morning if you could. He's great.
It's one of those things too. It's like I tell people, like, your environment matters,
Yeah.
and if you don't, and here's the thing, and I tell everyone this, there's people within your brokerage right now that are willing to pour into you. There's people in your brokerage right now that are very optimistic of what 2024 and 2025 is going to bring.
Right.
There's also people within your brokerage, and it may be you, that are just down and out and think that the real estate's coming to an end. And, we got all the lawsuits going on right now. And we have, high interest rates and pricings, affordability and all of these things. Right. So if you're one of those people or you're around those people, you need to change your environment. Like, if that means you have to switch brokerages, right? Because I promise you that there are people out there that are very excited about next year. They're very excited excited about the lawsuits. There's opportunities coming because of it. Like, I don't care what you say. It doesn't look good for us, but there's opportunities. There's always opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And it just comes down to who you're around. And I promise you, just like every guest on here, they all had mentors and people that poured into them and helped them along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know you're there for people too, and I know you have, John, because obviously we don't work for the same brokerage, but you've reached out, and one thing I really do like about what you do, and I don't know if anybody's told you this, is, and I'm not saying all, but there is quite a bit of real estate coaches and mentors out there, and I hope, but they hold back. They hold back some information, right? They hold back maybe the keepers that they think that's all baloney. I mean, you should never hold back when you're trying to help a real estate agent. You should always tell them everything that you went through, what you think may work. Tell them some things that don't work. I tried that. I wouldn't do it, but you can try it. I'm just telling you my experiences, right? But you should never hold back. There was, so I think back in the day, it just seemed like there was a real estate course every other weekend, going on. And I would go because I'm like, okay, I got to, maybe there's one or two takeaways on this, but then I leave and I'm like, man, am I wrong? Or they just try to sell me about $2,000 worth of material that I already know. So you just got to be picky and choosy who you kind of learn from and who you hang out with. But that's one thing that I really like about you is you really, if you're going to give it all, give it all to them. And they're still going to come back and ask you questions because they're going through their own experiences, but it helps them grow as people. And you know what? I was talking to another person, and they were saying, when when you pass away, who's going to all show up or something like that. And I said, honestly, I hope my friends and family, but more so, I hope all my colleagues, the people that I've touched, right? The people that you work with or had relationships with that show up and go, wow, man, that Tom or that Jon Harp was an excellent person, man. Just gave what he could give. And, there's times I got to give more. I'm not perfect. We're not all perfect, but there's things that I need to do on a personal level that I just want to become closer with. It's just weird as you get older, John. You're not as old as me, but things change as you get older, and people mean more. They've always meant something, but I mean,
Right.
it just, I don't know, man. It's just weird,
Yeah, that leads me to the next question, that I always ask my guests is, what's a legacy goal for you? What's a goal that you want to hit when you're no longer here?
My legacy is really where I leave enough on the table that my kids and my wife don't have to worry for quite some time. Just leave something, and that is truly the tiny home is just built. It's on a beautiful piece of property, and that tiny home is built correctly. The land improvements, that is, John, you do land improvements, it's very expensive. And I've seen people do land improvements wrong and things of that nature. And we're talking like septic, electric, and all. Everything was done top notch. And that's a place for them to go relax away with families when, and that's a legacy, is just to leave a good feeling about what you said or your decisions. You leave people knowing that you were honest. And just try to do your best to be the right person for everybody. That's even your buyer or seller. Now, don't get me wrong, my personality doesn't rub off on everybody, and I've been very lucky to, maybe in my 25 years, I've had maybe two clients that we just didn't seem eye to eye on things, and I think that's where I shot it straight, and they don't like straight talkers, I guess. So. And that's okay. That's okay. I just say, maybe it's better you work with maybe my wife, and if that doesn't work, maybe it's somebody else in the office or something like that. So but you only got what do we think when you hit the door, right? When you're meeting a seller or a buyer, what did we say one time? Is it's less than 30 seconds before they probably like you or not. That's quick. That's quick.
Yep. Yeah, and it can be based off of how you dress. It could be based off of your hair. Like there's we all judge people in a glance, right? And obviously
it's really sad.
Yeah, and your job as the agent, right, is how do I build relationship with this person? I got to find some common ground somewhere. And that's how that's how relationships form and are created. Tom, I know we're running out of time. I got one last question for you. If you could give the audience one piece of advice that maybe you received, or that maybe you wish you had received, or one that you give, if even I know you said you mentor agents in your brokerage, like what advice would you give our audience about real estate?
I really still go back to the CRM. I think building that database is one of the largest things that's going to help you down the road, because the more that you're in real estate, the harder you work in the beginning, the easier it's going to get in those later years where, your phone is just going to ring and say, just come list my house. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, obviously you still want to take your preparation, you want to prepare, but I think that's one of the biggest takeaways, is just working hard. And there's another saying that I have on my own, because I picked up my own things, is, only you can change your situation in life. That's point blank. Only you can do it. It's either going to be positive or negative, and the decisions you make can affect you for quite some time. So, and just trust your heart too on the decisions that you make. So,
Well, Tom, I really
appreciate and pick good friends, John. You got to have good friends around you.
That is true. I mean, hey, it's and I know you touched on it, like as you go on in life and things change, like your friends will change too, right? Based
Yeah,
off
they
of your
will.
and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that happening. And Tom, I really enjoyed the conversation today. Those that are watching, Tom's phone number's down below. So if you guys have questions, if you're thinking about buying, selling, investing in real estate, the tiny home, if you want to reach out to him regarding real estate, please make sure you give him a call with his phone number down below. If you are an agent and you just loved Tom's story and you just connected with him, reach out to him. He's there to help you.
Yeah.
He'll pick up the phone and answer your questions. But Tom, for those listening in, what is the best way for someone to connect to you?
You can just connect to me at the number there, the 614-348-1940. You can reach out to me either by phone or text, and whatever company you're with, you just need to talk. Definitely would talk to you and give you any type of advice, and that's free of charge. So,
Tom, thanks so much, friend. I appreciate
all right,
you.
buddy. You have a
I'm
wonderful holiday.
Hey, you as well. Tell the family I said hello, and we'll connect again after the new year.
All right, buddy. Nice seeing you. Thank you.
See ya.
See you, buddy.